Hello there. You're watching All 24 News World News Program. Now to the headlines. The Zionist occupation approves its plan to occupy the Gaza Strip. The resistance vows to thwart it and says the move is a full-fledged war crime, while the Palestinian presidency calls on Trump to halt the resolution's implementation. Later on, the UN Security Council holds an emergency meeting on Saturday to discuss the Israeli plan to occupy Gaza. The United Nations dubs the move a dangerous escalation and calls for its immediate halting amid wide international condemnation. Also in our news, in Sudan, several dead are recorded in new shelling by the Rapid Support Forces in Kordofan. Human rights organization says that basic services in El Fasher have completely collapsed due to the blockade, and the World Food Programme warns that more than 300,000 people suffer from hunger in the region. And in a phone call with a Chinese counterpart, Putin briefed Xi on the outcome of his meeting with Trump's envoy. Bloomberg reveals efforts between Washington and Moscow to reach a truce in Ukraine. All these and more shortly. Hello again and welcome to our news program for tonight. First off in our news, the Zionist occupation has approved a proposal to seize control of Gaza City as part of a broader plan to occupy the entire Gaza Strip. Netanyahu's office added that occupation forces are preparing to seize control of the city, while media sources said that the Zionist plan, unanimously approved by the occupation, authorizes Benjamin Netanyahu to approve the control plan and subsequently occupy the entire Gaza Strip. In the same line of thoughts, the Islamic resistance movement Hamas considered the Zionist entity's decision to occupy Gaza City as a prelude to a complete occupation of the entire Strip, a war crime that the occupation intends to commit against nearly 1 million of its residents. In a statement, Hamas emphasized that this decision explains the reason behind the occupation's sudden withdrawal from the last round of negotiations, warning it of the heavy price it would have to pay and holding the U.S. administration fully responsible for the crimes of the occupation that it fully supports. In the same file, the Palestinian Resistance Committee stated that the resistance will consider any foreign force inside the Gaza Strip as an occupation and will not lay down arms as long as the occupation's presence persists in Gaza. In a statement, the committees emphasized that the Zionist entity's decisions regarding the occupation of the Gaza Strip reveal its political and field failure to achieve its goals despite its crimes. They added that the Zionist entity will not recover its prisoners except through negotiations, calling for a general mobilization in support of the people of Gaza.
We affirm that any foreign force or state in Gaza will be treated as an enemy force and occupation, and the weapon of resistance will remain open in their face until it is eliminated. The decisions of the Zionist Security Council regarding the occupation of Gaza reveal the political and field crisis and failure of the enemy, as it has not achieved any of its goals despite committing acts of genocide and ethnic cleansing. The enemy will not be able to recover its prisoners from the resistance, except through the negotiation door, and it alone bears full responsibility for their lives.
And on a similar note, Palestinians and residents of Gaza City expressed their shock at the Israeli plan to seize control of Gaza City as part of a larger plan to occupy the entire Gaza Strip. Palestinian families in the city consider the move decided by the Netanyahu government will pave the way for more killing and genocide.
I don't know where to go. Where should we go to? This is shameful. Either way, we are living in tents. Where does he want to send us to? What will differ is the area. There we are in tents, and here we are in tents. And if we go back, we will be in tents. Our whole lives, we will be in tents. Until when? What does the army want us to do? Just leave us where we are. Where should we go? We are 21 people. How can we go to the south? How will I take them and leave? How will I carry the tons, or the children, or the pregnant women, or those breastfeeding? What should I do? Where should I go?
For its part, the Palestinian presidency expressed a strong rejection and condemnation of the dangerous decisions adopted by the Zionist occupation to reoccupy the entire Gaza Strip and forcibly displace nearly 1 million Palestinians from Gaza City and the northern Gaza Strip to the south. In a statement on Friday, the Palestinian presidency warned that these Zionist plans based on killing, starvation, and forced displacement will lead to an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe.
We hold the American administration responsible for curbing this Israeli policy because American statements only encourage Israel to continue the war. Therefore, we, the Palestinian presidency, are in constant contact today with Arab leaders and with the world to condemn and reject this action and to exert efforts at all levels to stop this aggression. This is a dangerous aggression, and these statements are irresponsible, and the U.S. administration has a great responsibility to stop this escalation because it will have a negative impact on everyone.
In the same context, the UN Security Council is to hold an emergency meeting to discuss the Zionist entity's decision to reoccupy Gaza City. The effort to hold the emergency meeting was supported by Algeria, Somalia, and the European members of the Security Council, with Algeria emphasizing the need to convene this meeting as soon as possible. The United Nations called for an immediate halt to the Israeli occupation's plan regarding Gaza, considering the decision a flagrant violation of human rights. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk said that the occupation's plan to completely control the Gaza Strip must be halted, adding that the Zionist violations committed against the Palestinian people in the Strip have gone way beyond our limits and should immediately stop.
Yes, of course, we have seen the announcements of the Israeli cabinet, and I can say that if confirmed, I mean, this we'll see what happens, but any decision to expand Israel's military operations in Gaza are deeply alarming. And obviously, it is clear that this would risk catastrophic consequences for millions of Palestinians and could further endanger the lives of the remaining hostages in Gaza. It has to be really clear. We really stand firmly on any escalation of the conflict.
Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, called for peace and food provision for Palestinians in Gaza and an end to the escalation and starvation. He stressed that the continuation of the war is not inevitable and that the two-state solution remains a realistic option. Let's take a listen.
What we want is to stop this barbaric military aggression against our people in the Gaza Strip. What our people in Gaza need is neither more wars nor more military control, nor the continuation of the illegal and illegitimate occupation. Rather, what they need is to end the war, to end the aggression, the withdrawal of the Israeli army from the Gaza Strip, the provision of humanitarian aid in sufficient quantities to all residents of the Gaza Strip, to end the forced displacement, and to prepare conditions to hold a reconstruction conference as soon as possible in Egypt, and to implement what the world adopted in a great conference held a few days ago on ending the illegal occupation and the independence of the State of Palestine, and subsequently implementing the two-state solution on the ground.
Russia's deputy permanent representative for his part to the United Nations, that is, Dmitry Polyansky, said that Israel's plan to occupy the entire Gaza Strip would be a step in the wrong direction. Speaking at a UN headquarters in New York, Polyansky added that Russia has the same position as most of the UN Security Council member states, stressing his country condemns this plan, which violates all UN resolutions. For its part, China expressed its deep concern over the Zionist occupation's plan to seize control of the entire Gaza Strip, calling on the Zionist occupation to immediately halt its dangerous actions. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian stated that Gaza belongs to the Palestinians and is an integral part of the Palestinian territories. It called on the international community led by the United States to assume its responsibilities and implement UN resolutions rather than obstruct efforts to achieve a just solution. Still with the same file, the Zionist Entity Security Cabinet has agreed on a plan to take control of Gaza City, a move that aims at expanding military operations in the shattered Palestinian territory. This has drawn strong rebukes internationally and also many countries in Europe. Let's get more details with Osama Yedi in this report.
Will Israel take control of all of Gaza?
We intend to.
The Zionist entity's plan to occupy Gaza drew sharp criticism from several European countries on Friday, with leaders warning that the move risks violating international law and further exacerbating the humanitarian crisis in the besieged enclave. The Zionist Security Cabinet approved late on Thursday a plan to take control of the Gaza City, a move expanding military operations in the shattered Palestinian territory. The plan triggered wide international backlash from European countries considered allies for the Zionist entity, and also divided the Western Bloc over the risks that would rebound on the entire region if the plan was put in action.
This statement by Netanyahu clearly shows that negotiations are no longer an option, putting the German government under pressure. It is already relatively isolated at the European level, as only a few countries support Germany's position of not imposing sanctions on Israel. And an isolated Germany does not help Israel at all.
Countries such as Germany, Turkey, and the Netherlands have criticized the plan and labeled it as a wrong decision. The United Nations and the European Commission have also called on reconsidering the decision regarding its high risk on an entire population who has been starving to death.
Let me start today with a statement. The Secretary General is gravely alarmed by the decision of the Israeli government to take control of Gaza City. The decision marks a dangerous escalation and risks deepening the already catastrophic consequences for millions of Palestinians. It could further endanger more lives, including the lives of the remaining hostages.
That's what we want to do.
The Zionist plan comes amidst an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza as the world watches how the siege imposed by the occupation forces on Gaza and the continuous war crimes in the enclave have drawn a complete image of war crime and a stubborn genocidal war with no mercy and no least consideration for the international laws and humanitarian agreements.
Also in our news, several Palestinians were killed and others injured in violent Zionist airstrikes on several areas in the Gaza Strip since dawn today. According to medical sources in Gaza, at least 36 people, including 21 aid seekers near the Nazarene axis in the central Gaza Strip, were killed as a result of Zionist airstrikes targeting Gaza.
I don't belong to Hamas, Fatah, or any other organization. We're practical people who care about our future and our livelihood. We were surprised this morning at around 7 o'clock by a call from the Israeli army to our neighbors to evacuate. We didn't get a chance to get anything. And other than that, there is no food or drink, only hunger, destruction, and bombing.
Moving on now to another story, but this time in Africa. Several Sudanese civilians were killed and others injured as a result of intense artillery shelling by the Rapid Support Forces on various neighborhoods in West Kordofan State, according to the state's emergency office. On a similar note, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says conditions in Sudan are dire. OCHA Director Adam Warsurnu said that nothing compares to what is happening in Sudan and that the situation there is the worst witnessed ever.
What we need is access, unfettered, unhindered humanitarian access to be able to reach people on the ground. And when we have access, we are able to assist. We have done so in the different locations in the quarter funds in Darfur. Our NGO partners our partners have stepped up also in a big way. We've also been able to assist in Khartoum. What we call for is a ceasefire, our ability to get into El Fasher. Under Secretary General Tom Fletcher has been pushing for a ceasefire for humanitarian corridors. We have not been able to secure that. What we need is for the parties to conflict. Here we ask for the rapid support forces to give us access to El Fasher.
Similarly, a UN humanitarian official on Friday demanded unrestricted access to 8 people in Sudan, where millions are suffering from severe food insecurity following over 2 years of brutal civil war. Nearly half of the country's remaining population is facing acute hunger, and in certain regions, such as El Fasher in North Darfur, malnutrition has been so far that it led to has been so severe, that it led to the deaths of 239 children over the past 6 months.
What I saw in Khartoum was devastating. It was a decimated city, a Khartoum that was once buzzing with life, almost a ghost town. A Khartoum that is utterly destroyed. I have never seen anything like this before in my almost quarter of a century service to the United Nations and to humanitarian action in several difficult war-torn contexts. This is the worst I've seen.
The World Food Programme said that more than 300,000 people under siege in El Fasher are suffering from hunger, warning that their time is quickly running out. In a post on the X platform, the World Food Programme added that trucks loaded with life-saving food aid are ready to move in, stressing that it is still awaiting permits and the opening of safe corridors to El Fasher. In this context, it called for immediate action to end this humanitarian crisis. To another topical development now, the Kremlin announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin briefed his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on the main outcomes of his talks with U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy for Syria, Steve Witkoff. During a phone call between the two presidents, the Kremlin added that the Chinese president thanked Putin for informing him or for all the information related to the meeting with Witkoff, affirming Beijing's support for a long-term Ukrainian settlement. U.S. President Donald Trump said that the possibility of a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine lies in the hands of Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a press statement, Trump expressed his willingness to meet with Putin, even if the latter refuses to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. For his part, Putin stated that he does not initially oppose meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart, Zelensky, stressing the need to create the appropriate conditions for that matter. Sources revealed to Bloomberg that the United States and Russia are seeking to reach an agreement to stop the war in Ukraine, ensuring Russia's continued control over the territory is currently under its control. The sources indicated that the American and Russian officials, are working closely to reach a territorial agreement in preparation for a summit between President Trump and President Putin next week. The dynamic movement of the Algerian community residing in France, Modave, expressed its condemnation on Thursday of the content of the letter addressed by the French president to his prime minister, which targets Algeria, considering it a shameful and unilateral slip.
The repeated statements of the French Minister of the Interior against Algeria for many months paved the way for this hardline stance. The French president's letter shows that these deviations were not isolated, as the head of state acknowledges them, magnifies them, and fully supports them through a declared political act. These statements represent a punitive approach based on cancelling bilateral agreements, targeting consulates, and using the migration issue as a political card of pressure. This escalation strategy harms the interests of both peoples.
Moudaf emphasized further that the Algerian community, which includes millions of women and men, is fully involved in all levels of French society and is neither a burden nor a threat.
The Algerian community, which includes millions of men and women, is fully integrated at all levels of French society, including, but not limited to, health, education, associations, the economy, the arts, and research. It is neither a burden nor a threat, but rather a shared wealth. We call for mutual, clear, and respectful cooperation, free from the logic of blackmail and intimidation.
And in another development, the Algerian Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs in charge of the Algerian community abroad, Sofiane Cheib, stressed the need to work in a spirit of solidarity and cooperation and provide technical and technological support to landlocked developing countries to increase their contribution to global value chains. Similarly, the Algerian Secretary of State to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge of the Algerian community abroad recalled the efforts made by Algeria in its areas of affiliation in order to participate effectively in infrastructure projects to break the isolation of landlocked African countries. And in another development, Bolivia commended Algeria's continental integration projects, particularly those related to infrastructure and the Trans-Saharan Road. In a statement on the sidelines of the closing session of the conference, Carlos Andres Oliveira Caballero, the reporter of the Youth Forum of the United Nations Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries and representative of Bolivia, emphasized that such initiatives would positively impact the region's youth, praising the pioneering role played by Algerian youth in the development process of the country and the African continent.
I'm very impressed by the projects Algeria has implemented, particularly the gas project, the highway, and especially the projects you have implemented in the Sahara. This represents a wonderful opportunity, and I am certain that such initiatives will have a positive impact on the region's youth, who play a very important role in this development process.
And in another topical development, the A3+ group of the UN Security Council, which includes Algeria, Somalia, Sierra Leone, and Guyana, renewed its firm commitment to supporting West African and Sahel countries in combating terrorism, restoring political confidence, and accelerating development in the region.
A3+ reaffirms its unwavering commitment to supporting member states of the West African and the Sahel sub-region and the regional mechanisms in their effort to combat terrorism, rebuild political trust, and advance inclusive socio-economic development as essential pillars for consolidating peace and sustaining progress.
And finally, it's time to catch up on other news stories making headlines with Nabil Khazini, this time in the News in Brief.
US President Donald Trump hosted the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan on Friday for the signing of a peace accord he said would bring to an end 35 years of fighting between the two countries. The two nations were locked in conflict for nearly 4 decades as they fought for control of the Karabakh region, known internationally as Nagorno-Karabakh. The Japanese Meteorological Agency issued a special heavy rain warning on Friday for Kogoshima Prefecture on the southern island of Kyushu, advising residents to stay indoors. Local media reported the rainfall in Kirishima City over the past 24 hours has already exceeded 500 millimeters, and local authorities have issued evacuation warnings for residents in the affected areas. A fire has broken out in the historic mosque turned cathedral of the Spanish city of Cordoba. The Andalusian mosque, listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most prominent historical and cultural landmarks in Andalusia and Spain, has been brought under control. The 12th World Games officially opened on Thursday in Chengdu, Sichuan province, kicking off a global sports spectacle. The opening ceremony featured fireworks and a light show. The World Games showcase over 30 sports, most of which are not part of the Olympic program. It is the first time the event has been hosted on the Chinese mainland. More than 4,000 athletes from around the world have come together to compete in 256 events, making it a grand celebration of athleticism and diversity.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. For more updates, you can always visit our social media platforms as well as our website. From me, Karim Zachary, and the rest of the team, thank you for watching. Till next time, take care.